Yeah, my name's Kathryn Hunt Anderson, and business, I'd say it's all over the place right now, but me in a good way. I mean, multiple things happening, so which keeps you on your toes and busy, so keeps me. But flow bar was a technique that I designed. Couple years back when I was pregnant with my daughter, and then I ended up gaining about 50 pounds, close to 50 pounds. And this is when I had my studio in Los Angeles, and I was like, Pilates it's not making me lose the weight. And being an ex-dancer, cardio is not my favorite thing to do.
Yes.
Like people run, I'm like, I don't run, I run on my toes.
Right. Yes.
So I was trying to mix it up, and I have a background in dance and certifications in barre and that stuff, and that kind of stuff. So Pilates, yoga. So I started to incorporate different techniques, and then putting the cardio aspects in with the barre and fusing it together, and then that's what created flow bar. So yoga, it's kind of the best of all worlds. You get yoga, you get dance, which is more ballet. It's more of a ballet technique. And then a cardio blast, and then finishing up with Pilates, nice and strong.
Very cool.
So, yeah.
So my question with that, for those of us who are out there who are watching this and they see what you've done, it's one thing to make up exercises and to kind of put your signature on things you do and people to like it. It's another thing to bundle it, package it, get it out there, get people excited about it on all those different things.
Totally.
How did you do that part of it?
Ooh, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of just 24/7 thinking of those exercises. So, I was lucky to do it. So my first video, actually I have two videos on Amazon. So my first video was 2008, which when I look back at it, I'm like, it was horrible.
You must
because just in terms of the exercises, and all of this stuff is experimentation. So it's just like all of this stuff on here. It's like trial and error. You try it out, maybe works, doesn't. So it was something, and I just wanted to put something out there because that 2008 was when, YouTube just kind of was getting up and running. We got our YouTube channel up and running. And my husband is a part of this, so he was a part of the studio, and he did all the film work, the directing, producing. He's in the entertainment industry, so yes, exactly. So he's definitely behind the scenes. So, he's amazing. I mean, he did the directing, everything. So that first video was a little bit rough, but it's, it's quick, it's easy. It's like Pilates-based exercises, 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. Had the hard copies in the studio, back then, like get the hard copy.
Yes.
So we just started to put it out there and just experiment, and one thing started to roll, and then flow bar was something where my studio in Los Angeles was in Sherman Oaks, California, and it just started to get, it was amazing. It started to get really big. It was like one of the biggest studios in the area. I mean, 15 to 20 teachers, 5 front desk staff, manager, everything.
Wow.
Yeah, we were close to, at one point, almost $500,000 a year revenue coming in. So we were just cranking,
Yes, yeah.
And it started off really small, like literally just me, 6 a.m., 8 p.m., like doing the grind,
yep.
cranking it. So, and there was no other option. I mean, my life, the history of my life, like there was no option to do part-time. It was just full-time. That was it. And so, so just jumping in, and we have the best teachers in the area. And I said, you guys are going to get 60% of what comes in. I've taught at many studios, and I want to give you the best that you can. And this is a community, and yeah, I got the best teachers in the area. And so it just kept booming. And then, when I had my daughter, the studio was like a baby. It was my baby. And so when I had her, it was so hard to figure out how to juggle that and then juggle now giving all my attention to her. And then I had a great offer come through from a beautiful couple. Actually, they still own the studio in Sherman Oaks. They downsized quite a bit, especially over the last year. But
Nice.
they're amazing, and they're still running it, Hunt Pilates, under my name. So
Nice.
yeah,
Legacy. Look
yeah,
at
yeah,
you.
exactly. So, but my whole point was that I started to branch out. You don't want to trade. I started to think I don't want to trade dollar or hour for hour, right? To try
Of
to
course.
figure out, and then especially the clients that I wasn't able to see anymore in LA because I was branching out doing other things. So I thought this was a great avenue to do another video and then start to get into the online presence, which now is huge. So.
Yes. Good timing.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So
So
you just
it's,
need like a husband who can like co-produce stuff for you and you're good to go.
well, I have to say it does help.
It does help. I
It,
honestly, yeah,
it does help.
like everyone in
And,
Core Conversations is my wife. So yeah,
oh,
like,
nice.
oh yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. She's from
Yeah.
the name through to like graphics and ideas and
How cool.
yeah, yeah.
See, it's a partnership. That's what I always say. We've
Mhm.
been together, I think it's coming up on 17 years together, married for
Yes,
10, but together for 17. And
amazing.
yeah, yeah. So it's a partnership. I mean, definitely everything we've done in our life is like, oh, let's do this. Okay, great. Let's do this. Let's go here. And
Yes,
just supporting each other. I think that's so important.
very cool.
So
Yeah, not that
that's
I was like
good.
totally stalking or anything, but he's in he's an artist. Right?
Yeah, so he's been in the industry. He was a kid actor.
Oh,
He's been in the industry since he was 8 years old. Grew up in
wow.
Hollywood.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean he's an amazing person. He gives so much to the arts. He was a dancer on Broadway, singer, in
Wow.
movies, TV shows, everything. Yeah, even directed, written scripts, everything. Yeah, so.
Okay. Very
Yep.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's great. We always try to bounce off of each other what we're doing and being artists and traveling too and moving from place to place. It's important to have that home roots, nice
Right.
and strong.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah,
So is your daughter like
cool.
super mover now too? Like having like picked the right parents who are already in movement or
Well, she's getting there. She's
yeah.
getting there, Yeah. Kids. I mean, it sounds
Right.
like yeah, they kind of
Yeah.
want to do their own thing and yeah, and then we try to find the balance between because we had again, like the way that we were brought up and the way he was brought up from a musician father and that was in the industry and traveled and it was kind of like no other option, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, and then you learn the hard way, what, wow, like a dancer's life is not glamorous. And like, this is like,
Not as
and,
sexy as it
and
looks, right? Like
yeah,
yeah.
wow, this is tough and
Hmm.
figuring out different avenues. And
Yeah.
so we come to the approach of, with her especially, we don't want her to live that kind of life, so we want
Right.
her to live, if she wants to do something, we want her to feel like she can do it and we stand behind her and she has the means to do it. And that's why we've worked so hard in our life. So yeah.
That's a conversation I have with my son. I have three kids, I have four kids, two of
Yeah,
mine, two blended family. But
that's
I catch
amazing.
myself talking a lot about my 14-year-old son Nathan right now because I spend so much time in the car going to basketball practices with him. It's like that's my life. Um, but the conversation we had the other day, I bought him a pair of shoes. He's like because of this whole lockdown, he hasn't been playing a lot, so he finally puts on his brand new shoes from last year, and they don't fit anymore. So we had to go out and then get another pair of shoes, and then we get in the car, and we sit down, and I'm like, "You're not gonna say like thank you or anything. I just bought you a pair of shoes, man. Like, so he says,
Totally.
right?
I can relate to that. Yeah.
So he says, thank you. And I go, well, thank you for what? He says, well, for buying me shoes. I'm like, no, those shoes aren't shoes. That's opportunity. My job as a parent is to give you the best chance to be successful in whatever you want to do. So those shoes are giving you an opportunity to do better in your practice, which means you'll do better in games, which opens doors and blah, 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 blah. So I didn't buy you shoes. I bought you opportunity. That's what you should be saying thank you for.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. It's you're starting them young. Yeah. Teaching them early. It's so true. And I think that's something that it's a fine balance. It's what's we're trying to teach her also, that understand, other kids don't have this opportunity, especially now.
Right.
And, in other countries, like I've lived in other countries before, and I think about when I was in Brazil, like living there and seeing kids that literally, I'll never forget when I heard this kid say that sometimes I'm so hungry I eat rocks. And like, it was just heartbreaking, homeless kids with no food. And, then I come back here and I see homeless. And I remember in college, I was walking down the street in LA and I had just bought a burrito and I ate half of it and I gave it to this homeless guy. And I was like, and I had just gotten back from Brazil and he was like, does it have rice in it? And I was like, yeah, it has rice. And he's like, oh, no, I don't want it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, we live in such a different reality here.
Honestly.
I was with people that didn't know if they were going to have toilet paper the next day because there was just no money and they were just literally living, but so happy too, happiness is just, you're so happy because yay, I got toilet paper. Yay, I got, well, we did experience that, I guess, over the last year. I got toilet paper. So.
Right. Hey, I was at Costco and I bought 700 rolls just in case.
And see, I always think of that. Like, you're hoarding toilet paper, and there are people like, I'm lucky if I get one sheet of toilet paper.
Yes, we digress.
I know.
It's so funny, right? But like, what was I going to say with that?
Sorry, we totally, but the homeless people and, like our culture in the United States, and Canada, I love Canada. We have some friends in Montreal and
Montreal's great.
Love Canada, but it's a different culture.
Yes, definitely. I was going to actually talk about John Claude Nelson and his family's orphanage and like that sort of thing.
That's amazing.
So on Saturday when they do like his scoop for Haiti and he's doing this mat class, all this stuff, all the proceeds from it are going to this orphanage that's in Haiti that his aunt runs. And which I think is totally cool. Yeah, he's doing that. But like going back to your point about not appreciating what we have, I've been thinking so much about that, and how do I get my kids connected with that? How do we change our worldview? How can I send them to that school for like 6 months so they could be grateful for what they have? You know what I mean? Like,
I was gonna say, I guess you could send them or make a trip out of it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we definitely when we travel, especially, we try to get her to see different realities, even purposely, like going to New York or San Francisco, and we're going to take the subway, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to be with the people. I think that's most important to see. You're not just living in you're not a spectator just viewing it, as a tourist. And that's even when it takes me back when I was in Brazil, especially the northern part, which is primarily African, so over 90% in Bahia. And so I stick out like a sore thumb. So I know what it feels like to be like, gringa, and obviously it's like they know you're from somewhere else. And so, so it's something that I remember when I had traveled back and forth there, and I would constantly think I started as a tourist and just going into different dance classes or events and then leaving. And then when I went back, I think it was maybe like the third or fourth time, I was like, I'm gonna just stay in an apartment, live like a regular person.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Just be with the people.
Right.
And of course they're gonna know I'm not from there, but just literally, and I got to travel through favelas, like everything. I mean, if I look back, like traveling as a single woman by myself, it was unbelievable, just amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, my wife used to travel a lot too, and but there's something to be said about just being comfortable in the culture, which kind of puts everything at ease, right? And people just recognize, you're not from there, but you can still just navigate it and just be comfortable.
Right, exactly.
In the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your husband from originally?
So he's from LA. Yeah. So he grew up in LA. His family, actually, we're in Dallas right now. So most of his family is from Dallas. His dad originally grew up in Dallas. And he has like 4 uncles and an aunt. So there were 5 kids. And he's an only child. And then his cousin is an only child.
Yes.
So the rest of them never had kids.
Wow. It's so funny, Kathryn. I realized after I asked you that question, that the question of asking where he's from is a different way of asking from a Canadian perspective than from an American perspective, which is an interesting kind of side conversation because your husband's Black, right? So being in Canada, when a Canadian asks, well, where are you from? The answer is, well, my parents are from Jamaica. My parents are from Trinidad. They're from Africa. They're from this country in Africa or whatever it is. Like you talk about your country of origin prior to things. So
different,
right?
It's so different.
Where's your husband from? You're like, oh, he's from LA. I'm like,
you're like, are you going to give me anything else?
Right, exactly. So that's my bad. That was my Canadian question coming out in this Canadian culture, which is so mosaic, and everyone talks about their place of origin.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just so funny. I just watch myself do that.
That is funny.
Yes.
That is so funny. Yeah, especially, well, and it's interesting being in his family here too, because they're Southern. They're very proud Americans. So that is a very different thing. So, we did the 23andMe, and that was kind of a joke with his family that he ended up calling them and letting them know, oh, we have some Nigerian in us. His aunt, we ain't got no Nigerian, hung up.
What?
So it, and that's what, actually, I was just having a conversation with someone about this. It goes so deep here. It goes so deep down into the roots of, especially when you're in the South. That was something I was like, wow, this is another country in itself. This is a whole nother country. Should be like Texas should be its own country, literally.
Right, they've tried.
I know they totally have tried, but it's something that even when I first came here too, even some parts of his family, because they're from the eastern part of Texas, which is deep down into the roots too of just, land, country, everything. And I was like, I can't understand some of them. Like I couldn't even I almost didn't, it didn't even didn't sound like English.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, this is so different.
That sounds like my way of talking with my family sometimes, and the pastel comes out, and you're like, listening.
Exactly.
Hard, right?
Exactly.
It's so funny. Sorry for taking us on this path of family origin stuff. So, core conversations, people. Full disclosure, I usually have these conversations offline with people and talk just generally about where we're going to go with the conversation. And I think we just kind of freestyled it this morning, just kind of just talk about whatever. That's just how we do, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. So yeah, I think the Pilates community. I think with Flow Bar, for me, just brushing on being in the Pilates community for a long time and talking about Pilates, because that's what I do and I love. When you start mixing things in like Flow Bar, and especially Dallas is another community that's really interesting. If you've ever done Pilates here, it's very biased. It's very like, oh, are you classical or are you contemporary? And
Very
I
purist.
was listening, yeah, and it's something that where LA, New York is very different, like you do the work, you can move, maybe you've trained here, you've trained there, but Dallas was a hard community to get into. And
Wow,
I think
interesting.
yeah. And over the years, that's something that, I mean, even here, I've had people say, well, you're not classical and you're not this and you're not that, like telling you straight to your face, you're not this, you're not that.
Hmm.
And and a lot of doors shut, slammed on my face. Yeah, slammed. And so it's something that it's just interesting. Like you do a concept like flow bar. Oh, she does flow bar, so she's not really Pilates.
Pilates.
You know, she's not. Where I've had to defend myself almost and say, listen, I came from this certification. My first job was a very classical studio, a Romana-based studio. It was the first teacher hired outside of the Romana training. She said, I believe in you, I love your work, and I'm going to hire you. And, performing arts physical therapy, they were out of New York.
Nice.
And so they were one of the longest standing studios in West Hollywood. And that was my first job. And it's been an interesting journey over the last 20 years because it's something
Yes.
that I like what you're doing because I like the conversation that's arising and that people
Yes.
can start to feel like it's a community and it doesn't necessarily, just because you do this doesn't mean you're that. Just if you don't fit into the box, then you're not that.
Right. Right.
And that's one thing I feel like maybe struggled with, but yeah, I've been able to, because the Pilates community is a trust. It's building up, putting the time in, putting the
Yes.
work in, but also mostly political. Let's be
Very.
real. Let's be
Absolutely.
real. Yeah.
Right. There's a sense of having to, I mean, it's the same in any industry too, right? Like proving like credibility, proving your worth, right? Like you have to say, I've
Yeah.
been grinding for this long, or I've worked with this person. So as much as I'm curious about like where you learn Pilates and who you train with, I don't want you to have to answer to justify,
Thank
I do
you.
flow
Yeah.
bar, but like, I do flow bar, but I'm a second generation teacher because learned from this person. Right? We don't
Right.
have to do one to do the other.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I love listening to your conversations. I wish I could listen every morning because if I had, the time and stuff, availability, I would totally do it. But it's something that I think the conversation just needs to keep happening and people that are deep down in the industry, need to experience these conversations just
Yes,
like everything else politically that is happening in the world, the same kind of conversations need to
yes,
happen in the Pilates community. So
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, it's
I,
something
I've
that,
I've heard that
yeah.
just in the last week, right? With someone who's in the martial arts community saying that
Hmm.
jujitsu is the same way. Like if you go to this school, then you can't go to this school. You're being disloyal if you leave this
Right,
person's teaching to go to this person's teaching. Or, JL yesterday in the literacy communities, like if you're this type of person, you get paid more than this type of person. If you like, it happens
right,
everywhere. So I really feel like we have this opportunity with the Pilates community to lead the way in bridging, like building those bridges and
right,
normalizing the conversation, blurring those lines with phrases like movement instead of classical versus contemporary and things like that. So I really feel like we are collectively leading the way when we do that. And when we have opportunities like these conversations where I can have, this person who trained with so and so, and this person who trained with this person, and you know, people who are watching get to hear both sides of the conversation. It's really, you know, eye-opening to realize that, actually, just a little sidebar. I had someone on one time, we were talking about these kind of things, and she was highlighting the differences between X and Y. And I felt like it was one of the few times where I really pushed back against my guests and said, like, you know, in those situations, I like to celebrate the similarities. I'm more inclined to look at where we are similar as opposed to where we are different as a starting point for a conversation.
Right,
You know what
right,
I mean?
exactly. Oh, totally.
It's so easy to point out the differences, but
Yeah, yeah. It makes me think of when I was doing a lot of yoga, incorporating yoga, because I practice yoga every day. I mean, yoga is just a part of my life. And so incorporating some more aspects, actually, she's really well known in the Pilates community. Actually had a really hurtful comment from her that was, you know, like a Pilates police. Well, this is not that because that's yoga and this is, and it was like on social media, you know, and it was something that was like, it's just, and I came back and exactly what you said. I said, this is movement. This is art. This is passion. This is love. This is all of us.
yes.
This is everything. And that's what it's about. It's not about, well, exactly what you're saying. This is not this. And how does this relate to that? And, you know, it's been an interesting process. I always think of all the places and all the studios that I've gone and seeing, I love meeting people and I love going to these different studios. But it's just so interesting the way that we just create these blinders and these boxes that we put everything in.
Right,
So.
exactly. Yeah, and there's Joe's comment there too. Yes, look at what is similar first, then work from there. The motivation and goals are probably very similar when we start from there and move forward.
Exactly.
Right, like whether we could be talking about Pilates or we could be talking about race. Like you could start by highlighting differences or you could start by highlighting similarities and move from that point. So that mindset of a divisive mindset first is always going to look at this is different, that's why they're other than us in some way. So
brilliant you just pulled it full circle. I mean, exactly, it's a metaphor for life. It is. And I said, isn't it always movement, you know, being uncomfortable, having those clients that this is so hard, I can't do it, it's uncomfortable. Well, what isn't uncomfortable if you're trying to see change? What isn't uncomfortable? What isn't having that experience to get past that and move past it and move forward and experience something greater than yourself?
yes.
I mean, take yourself out of it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, growth is uncomfortable. You know, or you could just be complacent. Like that's your option. Really, it really is your option. Like they say, like, quitting is not an option. Like that's a lie. Quitting is the most readily available option. You can quit whenever you like.
Totally.
You know I mean? Like, totally. Or you can actually try and be better, right? So it's up to you.
Yes. No, that's so true. And you know, a lot of people I feel like do and cop out, you know, there's cop outs and there's this and that. And yeah, and I think it is people like us and the community that gets out there and talks about it. And maybe if you didn't understand this, going back to even what happened over the last year, I've had to have conversations with my friends and family, even my family members.
Yes.
My own family members saying, just have the conversation. Don't be passive aggressive. Don't be, you know, just make assumptions. And you really see people's true colors, talking about true colors. Yeah, you see people's, you know, what really they're made out of.
Right, yeah. Absolutely. And and on the flow bar thing for just a minute here too, there's a sense, I respect the fact that you did that because it does take courage to move away from center, no pun intended, when it comes to Pilates, right? Like if the closer you are to this authentic, classical, true Pilates, the less assault you're opening yourself up to. Like
Right.
if you're contemporary, it's like, well, it's not classical. If you're doing like piloxing or something, then you're way out there. And
Yeah.
then, well, that's not Pilates. Well, that's not this. Well, that's not that. So
Right.
when I meet people and have conversations with people who've invented their own derivative or their own expression of Pilates that meet the needs of their population, kudos to you, because I know that that also comes
Thank you.
with a lot of the challenges of people, you know, questioning what you do, questioning if what you
Right.
do is legitimate. Is it legitimate, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, no, it is. And it's something that they try to again put in their box. So they try to figure out, and if we can't figure it out, then we can't understand it. So it's something that unless we experience it. And then I do have to say on a positive note, when people do experience it and they experience my classes, they're like, wow, that's something that, yeah, just something that they would have never thought. Even people in the Pilates community that have taught for years and years and years. I mean, I'll never forget. I would love to get her on here. I'm going to have to try to convince her. But Diane Cerverino,
Okay.
who's one of my best friends. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, but
Order her information after as well.
I will, but she's not even on social media, so we'd have to really pull some teeth.
Okay.
We'd have to
just make her
try to
account and like just.
I've thought about it actually. I even said I will fly back to LA and sit there with you and to get her on. So she's in her late 70s and she's so beautiful. She's such a beautiful mover. So she ended up taking over Ron Fletcher's studio.
Okay.
So she kind of was always living, I mean, I don't know if she'd get upset at me saying that, but in the shadow of Ron.
She's not watching right now.
Yeah, right. I know. So she was always the model, the perfect model for Ron Fletcher.
Yes.
So, yeah. And her stories are just unbelievable when you hear them, and they're just amazing. And going back to, I had worked at so many studios, teachers, the Pilates community. It's like the dance world a little bit. So, yeah. And so it's very like, oh, who's that? Oh, what is she teaching? What kind of technique? What is that whole thing? Yes. And I remember when we first met in one of the studios, it was like it was just that moment of, Pilates. Pilates. And we didn't care where we came from, what we were doing prior. It was just love at first sight, and it was. And after, I remember she was working with a regular client, and then I think I was actually just working. It was at a chiropractor owned the studio in LA. And, so we ended up talking after the session, and she was like, where did you come from? And I said, oh, this is where I came from. And she said, oh my gosh, it's just amazing. And I said, you're amazing too. And it was just, since then, that was about 2008, 2009. And we've just been, she pretty much just sums it up. She took me to get my wedding dress.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And we still talk, every couple of weeks, and we talk about the Pilates community, and it's just, and she finally just, because all the years at my studio, she was teaching there, and we actually ended up developing a teacher training program through the PMA at Hunt Pilates. And I would always say, Diane, when are you going to be on Pilates anytime? When are you going to be on Pilates anytime? And she just looked at me. And then sure enough, finally they call. I'm like, they're going to call you one of these days. I know they are. Yeah. They're going to realize who you are in your 70s. It took. In your 70s, they're going to realize who you are. And finally, she's on there. You can catch her on Pilates anytime now.
Yes. Well, there's so many people out there like that, right?
Right.
Not everyone is like you and I, like social media savvy, trying to reach the masses. There's people out there who are just gems, absolute gems, know this work inside out and are just
Oh,
passionate about
yeah.
people, full stop.
Right. Just, yeah, I mean, she's unbelievable. She's from Brooklyn. She still has the Brooklyn accent. And she went to Juilliard. She was a Martha Graham dancer. I mean, the histories and the stories are just, but she's the perfect example of it's the work. It's just the work. It's not Fletcher Pilates. It's not this. It's not that.
Come on now.
And and it's just,
Yep.
can you move your body and can you do it? Like even this March Madness, it's such a celebration of that movement and revisiting the work over and over again and finding new experiences in it for myself, for my clients, for it all around. And it's constantly revisiting it. And that's something that, yeah, I mean, even the last conversation we had, I was telling her I was doing March Madness and I was trying to do the work every day. I was trying to incorporate it into my everyday practice. And she was like, no way. I was like, yeah. And she's like, the mat work too? And I was like, the mat work. And she said, I wish we lived closer because we would totally be doing that like every day if we could.
Yes, sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's going to be doing it. I mean, she's almost 80 years old. She's going to be doing it till the last day, the
right.
last breath. Yeah.
Is she still teaching right now, or is she just her own practice? Yep.
She's still teaching. So after she took over Fletcher Pilates, in Beverly Hills, I mean, her story, like she taught Barbara Streisand, unbelievable. Like she would go to people's houses up, in Hollywood and everything. And just,
Right. Yes.
she's the ultimate just diva, like literally diva Diane. And yeah, so great. So yeah, but then so after that studio ended up closing, she just had her clients like they're just going mostly home practices, and then the studio that I saw her at, I ended up meeting her. She rented just every couple like so often just
Right.
to bring clients in and stuff like that. So
Right.
yeah, but then yeah, she ended up when I opened my studio, I was like the first thing I thought, you are teaching,
Yes.
you are going to be here, like you are like this is your home, this is your new Pilates home.
Absolutely.
So
That speaks on two levels. It's almost like it's not necessarily like star power, but the ethos that
right,
you want in that space.
right. And exactly, it's the people that you can connect with, and there's people that there's little things in life I feel like that you meet people and it's a click, like what I was talking about. It's
Yes.
something that, and even this last year, it makes me think. Actually, I always go back to this Will Smith speech.
Hmm.
I love this speech, his motivational speech that he was talking about people, and uh, as he started to climb the mountain and get higher and higher, he said, how I look at people now is just straightforward. They either piss on my fire or they fuel my fire. And this last year, I really think of that. I constantly think of who in my life is pissing on my fire right now, or who in my life is like fueling my fire
Right.
and pushing it and moving it. And the people that are pissing on it are out. Like I don't need them anymore. And
Yes.
that's what he's talking about. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's it's been a great time to reassess, to reevaluate, and to
right.
prune that tree, right? Right. Lop off branches if you have to, right? Like, but that's exactly it. And it's funny you say that because that reminds me of what I was going to say earlier about when you were talking about happiness. When I
Mm,
spoke on the weekend at Brink, I was saying there was a research study that showed 20 people, 22 people that had won like major lotteries, right? Like the
mm,
huge lotteries, and 27 people who had suffered a disability due to an accident. And they surveyed both of them to ask, are they happy? And
mm.
the response was that it was exactly the same for both groups. They're both
Wow.
like everyone described themselves as happy, and it wasn't like there was more people who won the lottery that are happy than people who had suffered disability, it's all in your mindset. Everyone in the group was equally as happy, the same number, because it starts from the inside out. So
Right.
yeah, it's, I
So
remember,
true.
yeah, so that's really what it comes down to, right? In all of this.
Yeah, exactly. I think over this last year, I think it really showed deep down when they're talking about mental illness and all these things that are happening that, and I even know people firsthand that have all the money in the world. I mean, you talk about blows your mind,
Yeah,
like literally, and then you're thinking to yourself, and you're not happy,
right.
and you complaining about this or that, and yeah, it makes you really sit in yourself and sit and think, what is it that creates happiness?
Right.
What is it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
for everyone it's different. And I think that's why I always go back to Pilates. I do. And it's something I always, and even when I teach class, sometimes my new thing too is making them close their eyes. And you'll kind of appreciate this a little bit, just being a movement specialist. Stand on the Bosu after doing a couple different things. Stand on the Bosu and then close your eyes. So you're balancing on the Bosu
Yes.
and think about what brought you to Pilates.
Mm.
What was your first experience? Why Pilates? Why?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, it's a grounding question.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I always remember my first experience and why I chose it. And it's something that takes you back to that memory, and it makes you, just come full circle,
Yes.
around. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So who would you say then is like your ideal or like your favorite type of person to work with?
I would say someone that's, yeah, just really passionate about the work, that respects just all avenues of it, all training techniques, that respects all people. Because it's not only just about the work, it's about exactly what we're talking about, our existence here. And so I would say that just overall, just a great human being, and someone that continuously wants to grow, like you talk about. They say that the best teachers are the best students, and I'm such a firm believer in that.
Yes.
I think that I constantly try to take myself out of my comfort zone. Like I just did a intensive with Ashtanga yoga.
Mhm.
Oh, talk about out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
Oh, that was really interesting.
Yeah.
That was like 2 months, 2 months. And Dean, he's an amazing teacher. He's out of Dallas. He's really the real deal. He's like an amazing teacher.
Yes.
He has the Shala in Dallas, and it's talk about being out of your comfort zone. It's something
Yes.
that makes you revisit it, and then it makes you see that it's not only about the work. It's about going back. And when I did do that intensive with Ashtanga yoga, I realized everything I had that I was looking for is already here. Everything I already knew, just I needed to see it a different way. I needed to revisit it or learn something to take me back where I had already been before. Does that make
Gotcha.
sense?
It does. It really does.
I don't
It's
know
like
if
basically
that's
yeah, it does. It's
that
basically
might be
everything you need is already within you, effectively, is what you're saying, to some degree.
exactly. And we use others to, meet this person or this person, and to see that, to see that and feel that. And maybe even it's not about us. Maybe it's about them. And I started to realize that with him too. I was starting to see things about him that he was evolving and learning as he was going too.
Yes. That's
And
a
that,
fascinating piece. And I think even just within our conversation, it's crazy that it's at 56 already, first of all. Like it's
oh, yeah, yeah.
But what's fascinating is that, Kathryn, in this hour that we've been talking almost, it's been about your husband and about this mentor of yours and how this yoga person, like I love how other centered you are with everything you're doing.
Oh,
It's not the Kathryn show in the midst of this, right? Like that's very cool to see.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I know we'll have to have more conversations. It's probably going to just
Absolutely.
continue to,
I could have
yeah.
gone in so many
Exactly.
different directions today. Honestly, like just yeah, we
No,
could
I'm
just
glad
go
how
for
it worked out because, you have a kind of, I try not to put too many expectations on things anymore, especially literally living day to day, minute by minute over the last year.
right.
And
Yeah,
you think of something and something's going to go this way or plan something and it's the complete opposite.
right.
So yeah, I appreciate that aspect of you too, because I think that's something that you roll with it, and that's staying present, staying within our
Yes.
senses. Actually, we were even talking this morning. I was going through that with my daughter. The five senses, what are they? And going through them, and going back to your five senses. Like, how often do we go back to that?
Right. Yeah. Like that being present piece is so key, right? Like it's so easy
Right,
doing this to be like, okay, well, let me look at the number in the corner. How many people are watching? What's gonna, those kind of conversations, you can do that
right,
to try to appease people, or you could just be present and try
totally.
to as I'm talking, to just listen to you and try and instead of trying to set up the next question, right? So I was like, that's why I forget stuff because I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let's go that like a little, like, oh, what about there? What about there? What about there? So
Right,
it
right.
makes for a fun chat to just actually listen and just get to know people. And I can do this all day with people. Like, to figure out a way to get paid to just do this alone.
Well, and I was going to say, we didn't brush upon business and all that stuff. I do love business, and especially
Mm,
coming from my background of not knowing anything about business and then falling in love with it. And it's just so addicting, and I just love all aspects of business. Um,
yes.
that's a whole nother conversation, and that's something that's really developed and took some time over the years to figure out exactly mixing your passion with money and figuring out how to make it work. And
Right.
it's a constant process and struggle. I wouldn't say it's a struggle anymore, but it's something that the more you learn, the more information, the more that's out there,
Of
you end
course.
up kind of rolling with it. So
Absolutely. And you're more challenged to be more efficient, to be more productive, and all those different things, and to do it in a way where it's not taking away from your family or not taking away from the quality of your
exactly.
service. And I get it. Like when you spat numbers
Right.
right at the beginning of our chat, I was like, okay, this girl knows her stuff. Let's go.
Oh, yeah, thank
So
you. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. Yeah, no, and
absolutely.
and I love helping. That's one thing over the last, I would say, maybe 5 years, just going into companies, helping people. I mean, I just actually, yes, just yesterday, it warms my heart. I don't know if Marco ends up watching this, but to be able to help someone start their business is like the most wonderful thing that
Love doing that. Yeah.
I could see, and I remember when I did it and not knowing what's on the other side, but giving them hope and saying, if you jump, because that's what entrepreneurs do, and if that's what business is, you have to jump. You can't constantly think. I love Sarah Blakely. Actually, she's not someone I just respect so much. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but
No.
the
I
founder
get a bunch of
and yeah,
names from you afterwards.
yeah, she's awesome. She's the founder of Spanx.
Okay.
Yeah, and she always says, and it's a quote that a lot of people say, but one day I'll do this, one day, or today is day one, today is day
Mm,
two. You're doing it. You're just going through the process. So, and
right.
I know so many people that are one day, one day,
Mm.
one day,
Instead of
and
today's day one.
the minute and now it's being able to read people and pick up on that, as soon as I start to see that stuff, it's like,
Too funny. We definitely need to do a part 2 to this conversation. We got to get that going.
Totally. Yeah. Well, thank you
Nice.
so much. Yeah, I
My
know.
pleasure. Thank you. I really enjoyed chatting with you today. This is life-giving for me.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, definitely. We'll keep it rolling. So, and keep doing what you're doing because it's awesome and amazing. And, you know, things will take, I feel like if you keep doing what you love, and that's what they say too, you keep doing your passion, eventually that turns into something else. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Enjoy your
Thank
day.
you.
Really
You
appreciate the
too.
time.
Yeah. Have a good one.
And yes,
See you
thank you
soon.
to everyone who is joining us today. And thanks for all the comments, Joel and Izzy. I see all you there. Really appreciate that. Have a great day, everybody.